was another seeker after the knowledge of the most great name, believing that learning this name or this word would bring the power to be able to alleviate evil in the world. So the seeker went over a very great journey to find their way to a master, a Sufi master, who it was believed could teach, knowing what this most great name was. So when the seeker arrived at the house of the great Sufi and asked, could he be taught the most great name, the master replied, you can only know the most great name when you have passed a test. Are you willing to do so? Of course, the seeker said yes. So the master said to the seeker, take this box and take it to the great Sufi peer who lives on the other side of yonder river, unopened. And so the box was given to the seeker, and he set out to fulfill this task. But when he was halfway across the river, he thought to himself, surely the test that's going to be given to me is the question of what it is that's in this box. So he could not resist the temptation to open the box. And when he did, a small mouse jumped out into the river and swam away. When the seeker came to the other side of the river and presented himself to the great Sufi peer who lived there, of course the peer knew without even being handed the box that it had been opened. So the master said to the seeker, how can you believe that you are worthy to know the most great name when you cannot even obey a simple order? Could it be that there's a relationship between what is implied with the knowing of the most great name or the word, the power of life, you might say? Like that saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What has this got to do with knowing that we know and knowing that we have the proper authority? There's another story, and it's the story of a great Sufi master who, when one of his disciples said to him, it is known that you can change the consciousness of even a child, a regenerate, or the unrepentant, just with a touch, or a glance, or even vicariously. How is this? And The Sufi master replied, "Let me tell you a story. There was a king who contracted a fatal illness, and when all of the physicians and soothsayers, magicians and the like were called to attend him, no one was able to effect a cure. But then it was brought to the notice of the king that there was, a distance away, the great Sufi master Khazali, who was known to have the power to cure all illnesses. So a messenger was sent to Al-Ghazali, who immediately responded by sending one of his devotees to the palace of the king. Now when this devotee arrived at the palace, he asked the questions of everyone who had attended the king, what treatments had been given. And he was told of the various methods that have been used to bring about a cure. But then the devotee asked that everyone be gathered in the king's throne room, and when they were gathered together, the devotee said, "It is a fact that your king must have faith." Well, there was an outcry because all of them said, "But our king has faith, and that hasn't worked." And so the devotee said, "Well, there is only one last cure, but I am afraid to tell you what it is. It is so dire." But of course, all the advisors and those who were gathered demanded that they be told what this cure was. And so the devotee said, "The cure can only be brought about by the blood of children under the age of 7 years old." And of course, there was an outcry. But after much talking and discussing and debate and argument, there was a consensus by all who were present that it was paramount that the king be kept alive, and so if it was the cure of children's blood, then the cure must be undertaken. So with great reluctance the king agreed, and the order was sent out to gather all the children under 7 years of age in order to shed their blood to cure the king. Of course, there was great outcry amongst the population. The mothers, some cursed him, and others prayed. But in the meantime, the king, tossing and turning in his bed, laboring over what it was that was needed to be done for him, finally called everyone together to state, "I would rather die than shed the blood of the children of my people." From that moment on, the king began to be well and was very soon returned to full health. Those around him differed in their opinions, but none acknowledged the cure that had been told by the devotee. In fact, he was sent back to the great Sufi master, Al-Ghazali, with not so much as a thank you or recognition. There were those amongst those who gathered around the king, claiming that it was their suggestions that had brought about the cure. But no one acknowledged what it was that had brought about the change of consciousness in the king to bring about his cure. So as we explore and attempt to find an answer to the question, how do we know that we know, and how do we know that we have the proper authority? The question also arises, what is the relationship between this knowing and these stories that have been told about the most great name, the word, the power, and the test that it seems we must undergo before we can know that we know that we have the proper authority? What relationship does this have with the word, the power?